thank you so much for clicking on today's video. As you can tell by the title, today's video is going to be all things NASM CPT, NASM exam, certification, study tips for the exam, helping you to prepare for the exam, mistakes to avoid to not fail your first attempt, which is what I did. I did fail my first attempt, and just kind of tips to help you get prepared for NASM CPT 2022. Before we get into the video, if you're new here, I would love if you subscribe to help me grow my little fitness YouTube community that I am trying to grow. And without further ado, let's get onto the video. Okay, so I do just want to start off this video by talking about like my experience with the exam and kind of like what my experience was like studying for it and like when I purchased it and stuff like that. So if you don't want to hear about my experience, no hard feelings. I will put a little timestamp right here so you can click on that and it'll take you to the part where I actually talk about the exam and what's on the exam and study tips for the exam. Okay, so I purchased the NASM CPT back in October 2021. A few people have asked me why I chose NASM. I didn't choose it for a specific reason in terms of like, I think that NASM's like better than any other certification. I just knew that I wanted to get my CPT just for my own sake. And I was looking around on YouTube and I saw a few people's YouTube videos just kind of talking about like the comparisons of like NASM versus like ACE or NASM versus like other CPTs. And the information that I gathered was NASM, I guess, is seen as like more respected. I don't know how true that is. That's just what the information that I caught off of like some YouTube videos. So there wasn't like a real reason why I got it. It was just kind of like a fluke. I didn't seriously start studying for it until like January. In November, I did start though. I started off studying for the course with the intention of reading the entire textbook. That's just what I thought I needed to do in order to pass. I didn't even think about like going on YouTube and like looking at people's experiences with the exam. I didn't think about like tips or like videos to watch. I don't know why I didn't do that because it literally would have saved me so much time. At the beginning of the course, I was literally reading the textbook page by page and I was writing down so many notes because I thought that like everything seemed important, and I just wasted I'm telling you, I wasted so much time reading. Like I got up to chapter 7, reading 7 chapters page by page, reading every single thing, writing down so many notes, thinking that like everything is important when in reality you really don't need to know everything in order to pass the exam. Obviously, if you want to gain the information for your own knowledge, that's a different thing. Definitely take your time, read the book, knowledge yourself. But in terms of passing the exam, you definitely don't need to read the whole textbook. So if that's something that you're kind of like have been wondering or like have been having like anxiety about because it's like 700 pages, you don't need to read the whole textbook. I'm telling you right now. I didn't read the whole textbook. I got up to chapter 7 and then I was like, hey, this is way too much information. There's no way I'm gonna retain all of this. So then that's when I resourced myself to YouTube. But a lot of them are based off of the 6th edition and I took the 7th edition, and there isn't a huge difference, but there definitely are some differences. And so hopefully if you're taking the 7th edition, you're watching this video and you're up to date with the 2022 version. I wasn't taking it like too seriously over the holidays. Like December came around, wasn't taking it super seriously. January came around, I was like, okay, I should have booked my test already. I'm still not ready because I was just wasting so much time not studying, just procrastinating. Procrastinating will literally be the death of me. One day I was just like, hey Emily, book your exam because otherwise you're just gonna keep procrastinating studying and you're never gonna get through this. That's when I resourced to, like I said, YouTube, and I found a lot of super helpful links. I will 100% link them down below to the videos that I personally found helps me the most. February came around, my test was around the corner. I felt like I was prepared in terms of studying everything that I thought that I needed to know to pass the exam, based off of the YouTube videos that I had relied on. Then my exam came around, and when I took my exam, I failed. I failed my first attempt and I was super like depressed for like a week. I took the fail super bad. Maybe the fail was like a lesson to myself to like learn that like fails actually are okay. Like you will get through it. If you do fail your first attempt, it is okay. Like take a big breath, study again, try it again. Like it's really not the end end of the world if you fail. If you feel like you're someone that maybe just has a lot of anxiety on failing your first attempt, obviously like go into the exam prepared, like study as much as you can and like speak it into existence, like I will pass my NASM exam, I will pass my NASM exam, manifest it. But if for whatever reason you do fail, just know that it's okay, it's not the end of the world. So anyways, that was just kind of like my experience with it. And then I had the plan to take the test 1 week after I failed it, because I just wanted to take it right away while the information was still like fresh in my head, and just kind of like touch up on things that I knew I didn't know from my exam. Now let's talk about what's actually on the exam, tips that super helped me pass the exam, and mistakes to avoid that I made the first time around that caused me to fail that I didn't do the second time around when I actually passed. So things that you absolutely need to know, hands down, 100%, okay? Overactive, underactive muscles. Every single YouTube video that you watch, everybody was gonna say that, okay? Not one person isn't gonna mention overactive, underactive muscles. I had second test, like the second test that I had, I wanna say a solid 15 questions in a row about overactive and underactive muscles. So 1000% without a question, no matter what anyone says, you have to know your overactive, underactive muscles for your overhead squat assessment, lower cross syndrome, upper cross syndrome, as well as the pulling and pushing assessment. You'll find that like the overactive muscles and underactive muscles are similar to the lower cross and upper cross syndrome. So as long as you know lower cross and upper cross, you'll be fine. One mistake that I made for the first exam was I found a YouTube video that shared like a mnemonic way to study the overactive and underactive muscles. And so I printed that off from like day one, like back in like October, like day one that I started studying my exam. However, I found that I memorized this sheet, which I'm pretty sure is from the 6th edition of the NASM CPT. I took the 7th edition for the NASM CPT, and so if you compare this chart specifically to the chart from like the 7th edition, yes, it's pretty much the same, but there are some differences. And so there is a mnemonic, like as long as you know, like I will link this down below, and then I'm going to show you my edited version of the 7th edition. So for example, to know like the overactive and underactive muscles, if you have an excessive forward lean, the mnemonic that you need to know for that is looking from the side, I see an elf with a gash on his hip. He looked like he was the age of 1,000. So age is the mnemonic for the underactive muscles, which is anterior tibialis, gluteus maximus, and erector spinae. For the 7th edition, I changed that mnemonic to, instead of the elf has a gash on his hip and he was the age of 1,000, I changed it to the elf has a gash on his hip and he let him go. So then it's not going to be AGE for anterior tibialis and gluteus maximus and erector spinae. It's now going to be LHG, let him go, which is actually your lumbar extensors, hip flexors, and gluteus maximus. Definitely like one mistake that I made was following this mnemonic, which was for the 6th edition, and not realizing that the 7th edition has minor differences. So definitely I'm gonna try to show you like my version of the 7th edition, but 1000% to the woman who created this mnemonic cheat sheet for overactive, underactive muscles, bless your soul, because this definitely helped me. I did notice for the second time around for my test, I had to tweak some stuff up, which I don't know why I didn't do that for the first exam. I don't know why I didn't notice that. Another mistake that I made from my first test to my second test was I did the same thing that I did with the mnemonic sheet, focusing on like the 6th edition and not the 7th edition with the OPT model. The OPT model, you need to know 110%. You need to obviously know the phases, so like stabilization, endurance, strength, endurance, muscle development, maximal strength and power. You need to know the stages, and then you need to know the reps, the sets, the intensity, the rest time, and the tempo. You need to know the OPT model. They'll ask you, for example, like which phase of the OPT model has 2 to 4 sets, and you need to know what phase that is. Which phase of the OPT model has an intensity of 50 to 70%. you need to know that. Definitely memorize the OPT model. One mistake that I did make, just like the mnemonic chart, was I got my information of the OPT model off of YouTube videos that, again, I think were from the 6th edition, and there were like minor differences. Like instead of one phase having like 3 to 5 sets, for example, the 7th edition was actually 3 to 6 sets. And that did mess me up on 1 or 2 questions on my first exam. Okay, another resource that really helped me studying with my exam, by the way, Show Up Fitness. Like I said, I will link the YouTube videos that super helped me down below, but Show Up Fitness, 100% watch his videos. He kind of makes you feel more like calm about the exam, because he just like, he goes through the entire textbook and he tells you what's on the exam, what they're not gonna test you on, which I found that most of what he said was true. But he kind of just makes you realize that like, it's really not a big deal. Like it's the test and the context and the textbook, it all just seems way more overwhelming than it actually is. And if you let it get in your head, I know that it can get like super overwhelming and super just like anxiety about like taking the exam, but it really isn't. Like it's really just like, don't let it get in your head. Anyways, watch his video for sure. Like he makes you feel like you're gonna be okay. Another great resource that I found was this cheat sheet. I will link it down below where I found it. It's a guy that has like a study guide. Like he goes through this, then he also just like explains certain concepts for you. And I definitely like watched all his videos, and I like wrote down like what I thought was important. And this is obviously just like the short formed of each like concept. This definitely has a lot of key concepts that you need to know. So another thing that for sure is going to be on your exam, SMR, foam rolling, self-myofascial rolling. I think that's how you say it. I have no idea. You need to know your static, active, dynamic stretches, know how long you hold them for. For example, active stretching, is reciprocal inhibition connected to that, or is autogenic inhibition connected to that? And same with dynamic stretching and static stretching. So know your stretchings for sure, and foam rolling. You want to know SMART goals, and don't just like know that it's specific, measurable, attainable. Don't just know like the mnemonic for it. Understand it. Like understand that like if a person says that they want to lose 40 pounds in a month, like is that specific enough, or like should they elaborate on that? You know what I mean? Like you want to like understand the certain goals. Another thing was the stages of change. So pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. Again, don't just know them. Don't just be like, okay, pre-contemplation means not intending to exercise within 6 months. Know like what else that could mean for someone that's in that stage. So definitely like read that whole chapter of the textbook and understand it, because there's definitely questions on that I found on both exams. You want to understand muscle spindles, Golgi tendon, or like GTO, autogenic inhibition, reciprocal inhibition, altered reciprocal inhibition, synergist dominance, altered length tension. You want to understand those as well. Those are going to pop up on your exam that I found on both exams. Same with heart rate reserve, the heart rate reserve formula. I didn't have it on the first exam, but I did have it on the second exam. I also don't know how much I'm allowed to say on like what was on each exam, because I don't want my certification to get taken away from me. But know that formula, know SAQs like speed, agility, quickness, know that. You want to know the general adaptation syndrome, the blood flow. It's like you want to know that like deoxygenated blood comes from the right atrium, goes down to the right ventricle, goes down to the lungs with oxygen, comes back through the heart through the left atrium, down to the left ventricle, and then oxygenated blood goes to the body. You want to know like the flow chart of that, what chamber does what, and like does the left atrium have deoxygenated blood or oxygenated blood? You want to know, does the right ventricle have oxygenated blood or deoxygenated blood? You want to know those. Support mechanisms of the blood functions. I had a question on that as well. The blood transfers, regulates, and protects against what? Things like that you want to know. Extrinsic motivation, intrinsic motivation. Those were like, I'd say like the main things that were on my test. Obviously, I don't want to just re-say everything, because the videos that I linked down below, if you go through them, they will definitely help you out. So things that helped me with studying was I would, like I said, I went through the Show Up Fitness video and I would just like write down everything that he says that I need to know. And same with the other video that has the cheat sheet. I just went through his video and wrote down everything that I needed to know, and then I like wrote them down in a short version so that I could like study it from like my own writing, if that makes sense. Like the main topics that I knew that I needed to know. And then the study guide. The study guide on the NASM CPT like course, like if you go onto your NASM CPT and then you go onto like, I think it's like the very last section, you'll find the study guide. The study guide itself is super helpful. They'll have like little like sections where they actually write down like very important, very important. And so I went through the study guide, like the entire study guide, and wrote out everything that was highlighted in red that said very important. And exactly what was highlighted in red you needed to know. Some of it, obviously, you're not gonna get everything on your test because there's so much they can test you on. Like a lot of people, a lot of YouTube videos had mentioned to know like the skin fold assessments. I didn't have any questions on the skin fold assessments. Some people had like a test based off of like the skeletal muscular system. I had 0 questions on bones. So it's like at the end of the day, like no matter how much you can prepare, every person's test is different. Every person's experience is different, but there's always going to be those like main core concepts that you need to know, like the overactive, underactive muscles. Please, for the love of God, please memorize those. And the other thing with the overactive and underactive muscles is you want to also understand that overactive can also be described as tight. It can also be described as something that needs to be stretched, short. So overactive, short, tight, and stretched needs to be stretched. All the same category. Underactive is the same thing as something that is weak, needs to be strengthened, is lengthened. So just remember that for each category. My main takeaways would be to go through the study guide, pay attention to what's highlighted in red where it says very important, because you will most likely need to know those. Watch the YouTube videos that I linked down below, go through them and kind of like see what's like a common theme or like common concepts that each video says that you need to know. And then just write them out in your own notes so that it's like easier for you to understand, if that makes sense. One other mistake that I made from the first exam to the second exam, when I took the first exam, I didn't study the exercises at all. Like for example, the medicine ball pullover throw, or like the medicine ball oblique throw, or the cable chop. Like I didn't study those because I didn't think I needed to know them for some reason. You do need to know them, so know those as well. Know like how your body should be positioned when you're doing them. Know like, oh, contraindication as well. Contraindication, you want to know certain contraindications for like someone with cancer, what shouldn't they be doing? Someone with hypertension, what shouldn't they be doing? You want to know the certain assessments that you would do for like someone that's pregnant. You want to know the assessments for someone that has cancer. Those you want to know as well. That was just based off of my experience. One last thing I do want to talk about is the actual process of doing the exam online. So I did, like I said, do it twice, and the process was the exact same. So when you log on to your exam, the exam is done through ProctorU. So when you like click launch exam, it's gonna ask you to like download this like ProctorU. You just download it, and then you are in contact with like your registrator, like the person that's like taking your exam coordinator or whatever. Anyways, they like take over your computer, so they like get access to your mouse, and then they pretty much just like get you through the exam, and they like close down any tabs that like need to be closed down, and you have to make sure you're not wearing any like smartwatches. Like they make sure to check your wrists. You can't be listening to like earbuds or anything like that. They do check your entire room, so I did have to like lift my laptop up and like show them like all 4 corners of my room. You can't have anything on your desk. If you do have like pencils and stuff, they will ask you to remove it. You don't want to have anything under your desk, so they do check the top of your desk, the bottom of your desk. You have to have a piece of ID, your CPR and AED. I didn't have mine printed, I just had a photo of it and it worked, it was fine. You do need to get your CPR and AED before you take your exam, and make sure it's super cheap. You can just like find it online. Don't take it through NASM. It's way more expensive through NASM. I think through NASM it's like 50 bucks, and then if you just type in like CPR, AED, American Health Association, I did it for like 20 bucks. and it's super easy. You can literally like get it done within like 30 minutes or like an hour tops. Super easy to get it. So you do need to show that, and then they kind of just like tell you that like you can't take any bathroom breaks, you can't have any food. They do watch you on your webcam, and then yeah, you just go through the exam, and then when you're done the exam, you just like let them know like, hey, I'm done, and then that's it. They'll say like, do you have any questions? And that's pretty much it. Super simple, super easy. It's a really easy process. But I think I want to say that that's about everything that I could give you based off of like my experience with taking the test 2 times. Again, at the end of the day, like just take a big breath, take a big deep breath. You're gonna be okay. It seems scarier than I think it really is, and if you do fail, just know that you aren't the only one that fails. Like the failing rate for NASM is high, and not be like, oh, if I fail it's okay. Like obviously you don't want to strive to fail, but if you do, just don't let it get to you like it did to me. You'll be okay, honestly. When you take your first exam, and if you find that like there was things that you just didn't know, just study what you didn't know and then take the exam again. Just book it right away. Don't prolong it and just wait and just waste more time. But I will say that from test 1 to test 2, the difference in amount of studying that I did wasn't a lot. Like I definitely like studied things that I knew I didn't know from test 1. At the end of the day, it comes down to the main concepts. I think that's the end of this video. I really hope that I just really wanted to make a video that was up to date, 2021 7th edition, and I really just wanted to help as much as I could, because I did take the exam twice and failing it the first time super sucked. And if I can help anyone avoid failing the first time, then I will feel so accomplished. If you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to comment down below. Find me on Instagram, shoot me a DM. I'm here to help. I'm here to help anyone avoid failing their first attempt. I think that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way until the end, I believe in you, and if you did make it all the way until the very end, then you are determined to pass this test because you sat around listening to me this entire time. So I believe in you. I believe in you. You have to believe that you're going to pass the test yourself. Go and freaking kill it. Go get that start. Thank you so much for watching. And again, if you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you gave it a big thumbs up. If it was helpful in any way, please drop down a little like, just to let me know that it was helpful. And again, please don't hesitate to DM me, comment down below. Any questions that you have, I am here.